going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of JaAR. JaAR, for those of you that may be new, stands for Joe
and Amy
Review, and this is our pseudo-weekly show where we review the Magic stories. And this week we are here for the Pride Across the Multiverse story. So the story associated with the Pride Across the Multiverse secret layer drop that was announced.
Yes.
And the story is called Note for a Stranger by Allison Lures. My quick review at the top of this one is you should go and read the story.
Yes.
It was fantastic. It was lovely. It was adorable. You should go and read it if you have not already gotten a chance to.
Great writing, fun, cute, all of the things.
Yes. And obviously we'll be reviewing it. That's what the length of the video at the bottom is for. I was about to say we're not going to waffle on, but we very well may waffle on. But regardless, if you have not gotten a chance to read the story for yourself and you don't want us spoiling it for you, because trust me, you don't. You should go read it for yourself. The top link in the description down below will take you to the story so that you can read it for yourselves. We try to remove as many barriers as possible. It's not that hard to find it, but still, feel free to go click that link at the top and it'll take you right to it. It is, as we said, definitely worth your time.
Yes.
Before we get onto the full review itself, just a quick hi. Welcome to the channel. Thank you so much for being here. Please don't forget while you are here, if you're enjoying any and all of the things that we're doing here, to subscribe and ring that bell so that you will get notifications whenever any of our videos come out. We also are live on this channel every Monday and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Mondays, if you're a fan of the game, we play Magic the Gathering, MTG Arena specifically, right here on Magic Monday, almost exclusively limited, or whatever the newest limited format is on the platform. That's almost entirely what we do on Monday nights, and then Friday nights we play whatever video game we happen to be playing at the time. This Friday we will be continuing our playthrough of, our streamed playthroughs of Pokemon Fire Red, which we are Nuzlocking, which is our first ever Nuzlocke. So definitely stay tuned for that. We also have other channels, links down in the description box below. In fact, we have Video Games for All and Gluten Free for All. Gluten Free for All, go ahead.
Is my channel.
Yes.
Where I do gluten-free food reviews and sometimes some cooking, some baking. So check that out, and I'd love to hear from you guys food ideas that you would like me to review or to make. I'd love to hear that in the comments or in any of our streams that we do in chat. And also, Video Games for All, if you're wondering why my makeup is so kind of cute and odd, check out Video Games for All.
We have a playthrough up right now of us playing through Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, myself as a licensed attorney, and Amy as somebody who is playing the game blind and has not really... You've played a couple of games like that before, but not many. That's kind of the premise of Video Games for All, so definitely check that out. That's every...
I like that in a loose sense.
Yes. That's every Sunday. And then we have Pokemon series and Final Fantasy VII going up right now as well. But all I was really going to say about, I'm happy to have you have talked about Gluten Free for All. All I was going to say is that Amy had a new video come out this past weekend. In fact, yesterday. If you're watching this video the day it comes out, so you should go check it out. It was great, and Amy reviewed 5 different flavors of gluten-free oatmeal. So if you're interested and curious of what Amy thought of gluten-free oatmeal, whether you are gluten-free, know someone who's gluten-free or not, you should definitely go check that video out. So, yeah. But thank you for allowing us that little reprieve. It really, really helps us out. Don't forget, likes and shares go a very long way also, and we really appreciate any and all support that you're willing to give. But on to the full review itself. Oh my goodness, everybody. This story was awesome.
Yes.
First of all, we start out with a fascinating little bit of information that I loved, which is that there is a section of Ravnica in the 5th precinct, or Precinct 5, if you will, where there is a notice board that is only accessible to planeswalkers. It's warded from other folks.
Yeah.
And so planeswalkers can go there and pin up notices of, like, it says, like, love letters or requests or wanted posters and things like that.
Right.
And I wrote...
Hey, I need this. Is there somebody out there who can provide that service or item? What have you.
That's right. I loved the little add-ins of, like, little Easter eggs for those of us who have been fans of the game and know these different planes. So, for example, there was a notice for extra tickets to a championship match, which is essentially on Kylem. Like they mention, this particular thing, and it's on Kylem, which is awesome. That's from Battle Bond, which we very much enjoyed playing through as a couple, because it's a two-headed giant themed set. So we had fun doing that back when that was around, and hopefully it'll be around soon again. There's nothing that's been announced, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed. There was this was hilarious. There was a Beetle tie clip that was lost on Tarkir. The posting for the lost tie clip is on Ravnica, and the person wants the tie clip returned to New Capenna, where they will pay you in units of Halo. Hilarious. Yeah. I loved that. Super, super funny. Then there was another for Fiora, which is the conspiracy plane. It talks about a possible... I mean, it said for a good time call, so it could just be a joke. It could be like some... like for like typical bathroom writing type things where you're just like, go to this person's house and ask them for sex or sexual favors or whatever, and like, that's not really what you want to be doing, or, for a good time, call this number or whatever. Or it could actually be, and I was a little bit more interested in this, it could actually be for a sex worker planeswalker, which would be fascinating to me. I would love to hear the adventures of a sex worker planeswalker. Okay. And how that would go. I don't really know how it would work for like a full planar release, like how they would do in like a mainline story and like what their purpose would be there. But at the same time, I don't care. Give me that story.
Okay.
Find somebody who's interested in writing it, and I will read it. No question. It just sounds so interesting. Okay. I also wrote, they could be a sex worker planeswalker. They could just be horny and bored. And so they were just like, put it up on the board, and they're like, come on, somebody come be with me. I appreciated hearing, again, little Easter eggs here and there. I appreciated hearing that Ravnica is finally cleaned up after War of the Spark. At least maybe it's just in that one particular area. Maybe if it was like the ziggurat or whatever that's like, maybe it's still up or hasn't been torn down or whatever, but it was nice to hear that like some of the rubble from that episode and that destruction has been taken care of and cleaned up. But yeah, then we actually hear about the subject of the story, which is Watley, which is awesome. Yes. We have not seen her outside of War of the Spark, which arguably doesn't count. We haven't seen her since Ixalan. Right. Which was, again, one of our, well, not necessarily one of our favorites, like, planes story-wise, but it was very, very good. And that Allison had a fair part in writing for, so I'm sure it was nice for her as well. I don't want to put words in her mouth, but I imagine it would have been fun for her as well to have come back to writing for this particular character. Right. She claims through her letters that she is there studying Ravnican government. Yeah. Because she wants to try to bring some of that back to her home on Ixalan. Which I also find interesting because she says that it was founded magically, right? Ravnica's government was formed, did I say founded? Formed magically with an outside planeswalker influence, or a foreign planeswalker influence, which I find very ironic because that foreign planeswalker, if she wanted to talk to him herself, is currently on Ixalan and will arguably be there until the day he dies because he is desparked and technically de-memoried as well. So
I suppose she couldn't ask him for advice.
Well, I was going to say, she's a little too late, but at the time...
Not that you'd want to, because he's a fuckhead.
He is a bit of an asshole, and by a bit I mean a large asshole, which is why...
He's also large.
He is quite large. Which is why Jace left him mindless and as the leader of Useless Island, because, God, it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. But I thought that was really funny, that like Saheeli's like, oh, I'm really interested in learning about this particular form of government. And it's like, well, you could have talked to him if you'd been, like, gone to the Golden City and gotten to that particular portion of it a little bit sooner, but no such luck. But I still, again, I just...
I don't recommend it.
Same.
Personally.
Perfectly fair.
mean, I would go to Zendikar for that kind of thing. You know,
They
I
don't
like the way they do things there.
Oh, I was going to say, but it's not really a system of government, though, is it?
That's what makes it great. Among everything else.
Sorry, excuse me. Amazing. That's what makes it great. Sorry. When we get to the actual letters themselves and or the little notes back and forth between the two individuals, Watley, who signs her name just capital H, following along because of the fact that the original letters were written by somebody signing with a capital R. Watley's nervous energy and like the kind of banter back and forth between them in these letters is phenomenal. If folks are unaware, one of our like favorite stories, nostalgia wise, was also written by Alison Lors,
Yes.
called Games, which is about, I'm going to remember their names, Gisa and Geralf,
Yes.
come on, there's so many I names in my head, like Ikoria, Ixalan. Innistrad is the
Yes.
one I should be thinking of. There's so many names in my head. I'm so sorry. But yes, from Innistrad, they wrote letters back and forth to one another that were, again, super cheeky. Like, obviously it's not the same tone here as it was there, clearly, because those two seemed to blatantly hate each other, yet are also still siblings, so they're still like doing the like playful digs here and there. But these two, it was just adorable from start to finish. The one line that I loved, from R, we will come to find out who that is later in the story, but my favorite response from R was, you make me feel like a teenager. I wish I could write as artfully as you can, or as you.
Yeah, and my response was, is Sahili not a teenager? Her art makes her look like a teenager to me.
I didn't think that was, I didn't feel the same way, but I also don't, it's not like, you're ridiculous, Amy. Like, it's just like, I did not feel that she was that. Okay. But I think ages of Planeswalkers is a little tougher to determine.
Yeah, I think it's a gray area for sure.
Yeah. But anyway, then we get, they like finally decide to meet up. And they're going to meet up at an inn at Ravnica for like, you know, round one or course one, where they're going to get like drinks together. And then R suggests that they then planeswalk to Park Heights in New Capenna to go to a dance club, which is awesome. I loved hearing that. And again, it makes sense that Capenna is like the newest place that we're at, so talking about it like 2 or 3 times throughout this story makes perfect sense. Sure. But I guess I find it interesting that, like, you would think maybe 5-10 years ago that based on what Magic was doing storyline-wise, that Dominaria would be kind of the center of their universe for the Planeswalkers. Because so many different sets had taken place there, so many of the Planeswalkers had originated there, like that's where we had first seen them all. And so because of that, I find it interesting that now, especially with something like this, I mean, maybe this cork board with notices, like there's something like that on every plane. I would highly doubt it, but it's possible.
Me too.
But it seems like, you know, especially with War of the Spark being what it was, it seems like Ravnica is now the center of the multiverse. Yeah. You know, not literally, but still.
It's Jace's plane, and you know, I don't know. He's the poster boy of Magic. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Ravnica personally as a plane.
I like Ravnica. I just, you know, I just know that, like, and I know that a lot of people love Ravnica. I mean, the 10 guilds are definitely like a big selling point for it, besides like some people's favorite characters and things like that. And that, I have no issues with that whatsoever. I just find it interesting that plane is the one that everyone loves. And I'm actually genuinely curious if the stories had been better in our return to Dominaria, if that would have still been the case.
Fair.
I mean, we're going back to Dominaria real soon with Dominaria United. Which I also found interesting because they, for like a half a second in this story, Saheeli mentioned, because spoilers, R is Saheeli Rai. We didn't technically say that, but you mentioned Saheeli, so I'll just get it out there now. That R is for Rai, for Saheeli Rai. And Saheeli mentions in one of her letters that she is on Dominaria right now. That's what she's been doing. I mean, obviously, she travels to Ravnica for these notes and then for her eventual date later on, but that she's currently on Dominaria. Does that mean we're going to see her? Maybe. That would be cool, right? I agree. It kind of seems like there's going to be a lot going on in Dominaria United.
Yeah.
But I also really appreciate it, again, knowing where we're going, that we're going to Dominaria United followed by the Brothers' War, which is like a flashback set, but during the main set release, that, was it Saheeli mentioned that Dominaria was like peppered with history of like misguided men or something like that, which is...
I thought it was Wally, but...
Was it...
it makes more sense if it's Saheeli, I suppose.
Oh, again, I apologize that I didn't write the quote down, but either way, the fact that it discussed the misguided men that messed up Dominaria, hilarious, because we're going to the Brothers' War real soon. So again, another little Easter egg in there, just super well done. Really appreciated that. And then, I mean, again, like, how adorable were these two characters? Right. Like, it was just, we haven't even talked about it because there's like, I couldn't point out to you like this particular line or this one here. Like, they're all amazing. Every last word that they share with one another, once it's outside of like as soon as Whatley asks Saheeli, again, they don't know that at the time, but once Whatley asks Saheeli if she's a spy, and Saheeli responds with absolutely a spy, like underlined or whatever, like so adorable, so funny that like they're able to kind of form this relationship with one another solely through letters. Yeah. Yeah, and then like now they're just super excited to meet one another now and like and then they see each other and it's like, well, there's that like moment from like the rom-com, right, where the two characters meet up and we know that they are the ones that have been communicating with one another, but Whatley's like, oh god, it's so cool to see Saheeli, and I really had developed feelings for her when I saw her, but I didn't really get a chance to tell her, but I can tell her now, but I really have to go because R is waiting for me, and so like, there's just so much going on, and you're like, you idiot. She's right there.
This is the meeting. You just don't know it.
Yeah, so whatever. She leaves. You know it's still going to be fine. She leaves. Saheeli comes in, and then they have their realization moment of like, because again, Whatley, God, I have so been in this situation where Saheeli walks in and Whatley's like, did she follow me here? And it's like, no, you dumbass.
There's always, like you mentioned the rom-com, there's always that person who's like that dumb, who like just doesn't get it.
Yeah. The only situation I can think of it's not arguably it's not that close, but I'll still tell the story anyway. It was my birthday and I was in college and I was talking with a group of friends and I was like, nobody had like planned anything or whatever, so I was just like, one of the guys who I was friends with asked if I wanted to like go to a diner for dinner or something because he knew it was my birthday. I was like, oh, that's cool. I was like, should we invite other people, like see if anybody else wants to go? He was like, yeah, sure. So I'm like texting with everybody and I'm like, hey, do you want to go? Are you available? And everybody's responding, no, we're not available. We can't make it. Sorry, blah, blah, blah. So whatever. This guy, Chris, and I go. Shout out to Chris. Really cool. But Chris and I go to the diner. And we get to the diner, and as we're like, I drove, and we park, and we go inside, and I go in first. And I didn't notice that Chris was like very frantically trying to get in front of me as we go into the building. Had no notice whatsoever. And I'm just like, yeah, come on, I'll go get us a table. And I walk in and I'm like, table for two, and the guy's like, oh, okay. And he goes to step away. And then he comes back and we go and he seats us at a table. And then the guy comes back over and he says, oh, there's somebody in the back that says that they're here for you. And again, no idea. And Chris is sitting there going, like to the guy, and I'm like, oh, maybe somebody was able to come and they got here before us. And I get to the back and it's a group of people who are there with a cake and they're there to surprise me. But again, I'm just like,
Yep.
whatever, you know, oh, cool, somebody's back there, let's go. And meanwhile, Chris is like dying. He's like, please, everything is ruined. And I'm just like, la la la, like super spaced. Like,
But at least everyone was like, no, we can't come. Because we're already there.
Yeah. Yeah, so, yeah. Whatley, I've been there, I get it. And I say dumbass fully out of love, because I also was a dumbass that day in that moment.
I thought you were going to tell the story of your cousin.
Oh, okay.
The
Well,
napkin?
yes. So my cousin was performing at a bar, like just, you know, playing some guitar or whatever, and a waitress was bringing him drinks all night, and she was saying, you know, free of charge, free of charge, free of charge. She brings him the last one. She says, hey, we're getting your last call. Here's your last drink. Gives him a napkin with it, and he looks down at the napkin. He looks down at the napkin, and she had written her phone number on the napkin.
Right.
And smooth guy that he is, I mean, he's a good-looking guy, but smooth guy that he is, right, takes the napkin, walks back up to the waitress, and he says, oh, excuse me, miss, I think you gave this to me by accident. It looks like you might have written a phone number down on here. I wouldn't want you to lose it, you know, if it's important.
It is important.
She, very confused, took the number back and kind of decided it probably wasn't worth it.
Right. It's like, oh, you're that stupid. Okay. I'll go on to somebody else, I suppose. Like, oh my god.
Amazing. So yeah, when it comes to, you know, matters of love and the heart and etc., sometimes people aren't, you know, fully aware of things.
Well, it just meant that it wasn't meant to be.
I guess so. So yeah, that moment in the coffee shop, Amy and I are dying. Not the coffee, the inn. Amy and I are dying because Whatley goes up and orders 2 coffees, and then she's like, oh, but maybe she wants, so also orders 2 glasses of wine. And then when Saheeli comes in and they have that moment and they realize that they're there for each other, and Saheeli sits down and looks at the table, and there's 2 coffees and 2 wines, and she looks up at Whatley, and Whatley goes, I panicked. Amazing. Amazing. So good.
It's like, why do you say that? Just say, I assumed we'd be here for a nice long time, enjoying conversation.
Nope. No, because
So
you're not going to have...
we might need some coffee earlier on, and then maybe a glass of wine as it gets darker.
No.
Or just, you know, make something up.
No, being real is much more important there, I think. Because you know Saheeli's just going to be like...
I mean, I guess because it's Saheeli, it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
If it was somebody she actually didn't know, I would think...
Amazing.
You know, like an actual blind date, I would think that you would not want to answer that way, but...
I would still answer it that way, me personally. I don't have that feelings that strongly. I had one question for this story, because again, beautiful, adorable...
Yeah.
You know, wholesome, everything. And I don't have, like, even this that I'm going to talk about is just something I wanted to bring up. I don't have any problems with it, but it was something that I wanted to ask about. And we kind of did it ourselves, right? I was trying to keep it on the DL that R was Rye for Saheeli Rye as we got further into the explanation that we would eventually figure it out. But my question is, because that moment where Whatley walks up, sees Saheeli, but knows that she's got to keep going, so she's like, I gotta go, sorry. And again, we're sitting there going, you know, come on, or whatever. Should that moment have been something that we were not in on? So in other words, the thumbnail for this story, I mean, you can see it in our thumbnail for the video as well, is the art from Pride Across the Multiverse of Harmony of Spring. I forget the exact name of the card, apologies, but it's of Saheeli and Whatley, as you correctly pointed out, on Ixalan with the dinosaur and the little fox familiar thing, the little filigree guy. So we know that it's about Whatley and Saheeli.
Right,
so,
going in.
Yes. So when the letters are signed by R, you know, before it was revealed that it was a woman, I was like, oh, it's Raul Zarek, because they were asking for copper, and it was like for a conductor or something. So I was like, oh, okay, yeah, it's going to be Raul Zarek trying to build something, and maybe we'll find out about the wedding to Tomek, and that's how it'll be, Pride across the multiverse and stuff like that. But instead, then when we find out it's a woman, I'm like, oh, okay, so it is Saheeli Rai. Right? I thought it might have been like a little bit of a swerve for us there, but no, the R is for Rai as opposed to the H for Watley, which is the first name. Like, so maybe they were trying to throw us off there. But
it sounded like they were trying to make it sound like it could have been Raul, and I think that was just like a way of being like, because he was in a gay relationship. Remember?
Well, I don't know. Like I said,
I feel like they suck at this a little bit, but I think. It turned out to be cute because it wasn't actually Raul, which I think like they could have made it like be Raul and then like eventually get to a point where it was Saheeli. Maybe Saheeli was working with Raul, or maybe she just kept answering those ads.
Okay.
And one of the other ones was Saheeli or something. So I was sitting there going like, okay, if that's Raul, then I guess she's going to keep, like, going to this posting and, like, find a new one and whatever. But I felt like it seemed like the story didn't necessarily seem like it was going to go that way. So I was like, I don't see, like, what the connection's going to be, like, how it would have made sense to, like, do both of those things. So I think the way that it ultimately ended up was way better than that. Like, way better than the like quick things in my head that like I was thinking could have been how it was gonna go.
Okay. Yeah, I just like, I'm just curious, especially that moment where, like I said, where Watley finds Saheeli like on the street and it's just like, Saheeli? Oh my god, it's been so long. Like, should that moment have been the moment where some people could have been like, oh my god, the R stands for Rai? Because like, otherwise, the set, like I said, at first we thought it was Raul, then when we knew it was a woman, we knew it was Saheeli, because we knew the thumbnail for the story, right? And that's not, to my, like, extensive knowledge, that's not Allison's choice, right, as the author, for what the thumbnail is going to be or whatever. So, like, the story was written in such a way where I guess either way it works, and like I said, this is not me saying that I have a problem with the story because of it. The story is still adorable and amazing and perfect, so, not a complaint, just a topic of discussion. Like, should it have been a different art for the thumbnail, and then show the art of the two of them at the bottom, because it was at the bottom of the story, and that's fine, because you've already revealed their relationship and how they feel about one another, and that, like, they've kissed under the moonlight and all that stuff. That's amazing. Then show the picture at the bottom. But the fact that the thumbnail was that, when you click into the story...
gives it away.
Exactly. So, like, that was, like, a little bit, like, should it have not been? Should it have been? Again, kind of my only, like, question. And then, last but not least, we talked about it before briefly, but I'll talk about it again. Having a story from Allison Lures here was...
what a breath of fresh air.
Everything.
I miss her so much.
Right.
She's so good.
Yeah. And, like, this was spectacular. It, like, you could, like I said, we noticed the influence of her writing with the letters or the little notations and stuff. Just, again, nostalgia for us in terms of the writing itself. Yeah. The little flavorful add-ins of Fiora and Kylem and things like that, maybe the Magic Story team presently would be able to tell an author to talk about that every once in a while, but an individual author is not going to be able to take it upon themselves to do that, because they're not going to know. These days, with the way that the stories are being written, unless they are old school fans of Magic, and there are some of those authors that are, so I don't want to disparage any of the like professional writers or that are brought in for these stories. Some of them are fans of Magic, and so if so, they might be able to like slip in a little something about Dominaria in there because they were a fan when Dominaria was the prominent plane or whatever. But stuff like this, that shows that's to show that the person writing it is somebody who has been with the company for long enough to know that they can just toss in Fiora. They can toss in Kylem. They can toss in these little, like, Tarkir and things like that. That is just icing on the cake.
Right.
You didn't need it. I didn't need it to be there, but it shows that this is the hub, right? This little notice board is a hub for planeswalkers to come and find these notations.
Right.
And so the fact that it existed at all and was written in the way that it was written was great, and the fact that it was Allison just compounds and adds on top of it.
Yeah.
So good.
Charming. Delightful. Fun. Light. Allison's writing has a pacing to it.
Mm-hmm.
That's very distinct. And it is the pacing of... I don't want to sound offensive when I say this. The pacing of someone young. The pacing of someone who's like a social media generation kind of person.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Like someone who knows how to write for people who are young now.
Okay.
Have their finger on the pulse and care about memes or, Easter eggs, things like that. An older generation doesn't care about Easter eggs, or at the very least probably doesn't know what Easter eggs are. Even though they're like, oh, okay, that thing. Like, they know what it is without knowing that it's called that.
Right. They
if
don't
that
know the
makes
name for
sense.
it. Sure.
And I just, I love the way that she writes for the audience that she writes for. Because it feels so... She is aware of the audience when she writes magic stories.
Yes.
And I don't know, other than her, who else has written stories that have felt that genuine, that have felt that much like the author is the audience.
Interesting.
Like, we are the same. You know what I mean?
It's a cool way of putting it. Interesting.
Yeah, she's a fan of Magic Story, as opposed to just being a writer of Magic Story.
Right. Sure. Yeah, it was just, like I said, just amazing to have her back, even for this brief moment. I thoroughly enjoyed every minute of reading this story, and honestly, there are times, where we will sit down and get ready to film a JaAR, and it is work.
Yeah.
This was just a nice way to spend part of our day. Was reading the story and now coming here to talk to all of you about it. I didn't write a ton of notes. It was a shorter story. Right. Also...
It was just an experience. And it always was with Allison's writing as well. And... Yeah, I won't say any more on it, because it's just I don't want to take too long saying things that we've said in JaARs a million times, which is that, the quality has declined and,
What I will say...
I'd love to see her write more of these.
What I will say that I think is relevant to this discussion is that, notice what we didn't talk about. You briefly touched on it, so I don't want to negate what you've said. But... notice that we're not sitting here being talking about anything regarding the LGBT aspect of the story.
Right.
Because we don't have to. It was written because it's just a story. It's just a story of two people meeting each other and they both happen to be the same gender. It is not... even though it's a Pride Across the Multiverse story, it's not written as look, lesbians. It's no, that's not.
Right.
It's just a beautiful, adorable love story of two characters finally being able to come together and be with one another or explore their relationship with one another. And it's not done as a
ham-fisted, well, let's shove Raw in there, and, you know...
Well, not even that. I just mean, like, you know, the company is not saying, like, look, we're inclusive, see?
Right. We're
here,
doing it.
we did a story for you about... No, it was written by somebody who cares, who likes what she's doing, and loves the characters that she's writing about. It's...
Gets it.
Yes, it's evident, it's obvious. And so, because of that, absent this particular portion of this discussion, because I felt that I needed to at least bring it up, or I felt that it needed to be at least brought up. I don't mean I specifically had to, but that it didn't have to be something that was talked about in that way. It's just effortlessly included.
It's almost like it's a normal thing that happens all the time.
Yep.
And doesn't need to be treated as though it isn't.
Yep. And so...
Almost like equality should be real.
Should be. Emphasis on should be. As with literally any of these jars that we do, or any videos in general that we do, we would love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Were you happy to see Allison back? Did you enjoy this story? Did you experience anything that reminded you of yourself in these stories? Because again, for that moment with Whatley, I sure did, so I get it. I also wanted to shout out, I was thinking about it before and we got sidetracked, but I wanted to bring up that I loved the description of the inn. When Whatley first walks into the inn, there's like description, and it's like, you know, we're at the end, right? So it's when Whatley has left Saheeli and is about to see her again and realize that she is R. So of course, I'm sitting there like, come on, give me the reveal. And then we get to the moment of just Whatley walking into this inn, and we get the description of the inn. And my brain stopped focusing on where's Saheeli, when are we going to see her, we're going to find out that this is the reveal. And I got to actually just appreciate the description of this place that I'm used to big, long descriptions. And I'm not saying it was big and long, but that I'm used to a lot, if not all, of the descriptive language for a setting being done up at the top.
Right.
Of a story, right? You start off, here's the setting, here's the description for the setting, now let's get into the meat and potatoes of the story and the dialogue and the characters and the conflict and etc. But here, while you're waiting for the other shoe to drop of like Whatley realizing that it's Saheeli and vice versa,
right,
you get that short reprieve of like a full description of where they're going to finally figure it out, where they've decided to have their date. And I really liked that. I thought it was great. So, sure, we'll go off of that. Being able to stop and appreciate the small things like that, and doing it with an author that we are happy to see back, that gets it, like Amy said, and that gets to put in those Easter eggs like we talked about, is a really awesome way to enjoy our time reading the Magic stories as you join us as we show off our...
Hashtag Vorthos Pride.
That's right. Literally, pride. Again. So, as we go into it, obviously, like it needs to be said, happy Pride Month, one and all. We love you all, we appreciate you all, and we see you all. And, yeah, that is going to be the end of this particular episode.
I did want to say one more thing. I forgot it, because you were saying all of that. So, never mind.
You sure?
It's over with now.
You weren't thinking of it when I was talking about the description of the inn?
Oh, maybe.
I believe in you.
I can do this.
Yes. The description of the inn, and like we took a reprieve and...
Oh, I thought it was really cool that they sort of like pick and chose all these like different things, right? Like they met up, but then they still wanted to like go to New Capenna.
Mm-hmm.
She Saheeli described right?
Mm-hmm.
Described why she wanted to go to New Capenna. She wanted to go to this beautiful like golden gilded, party house,
Dance hall.
basically.
Dance
yeah.
hall. I think she called it a dance hall, yeah.
You know, and I just think it's so cool that, like, they can pick and choose like that. Because they're planeswalkers, of course, right?
Sure.
So, you know, they can leave notes for each other on Ravnica, and they can meet up on New Capenna, and they can talk about, you know, staying on Dominaria, you know, and I was thinking of it less as like an Easter egg thing and more of like they're figuring out a way here to like tailor their life experience to the possibilities at hand.
Okay.
Right? They're not settling for, well, we were sending each other notes on Ravnica, so we just have to, you know, have our date here on Ravnica, because of course, why wouldn't you? Well, if there's a better place, you know, travel.
Yeah.
You know, but they're still removed enough from the politics and BS of New Capenna and crime of New Capenna, where they can show up there, have a wonderful date in this beautiful locale, enjoy themselves, and then should shit get dicey, because as we know it does on New Capenna,
Sure
they
does.
just planeswalk away.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was cool.
Sure. Yeah, very interesting. And I'm super glad you were able to remember it.
Yeah, me
Because
too.
that's
And thanks for
important.
your help.
Anytime. That's why I was like, yes. And then when you were like, Anyway. So, that, as I said, is going to be the end of this particular episode. Thank you all so very much for joining us. We, of course, hope that you enjoyed. Please don't forget, if you did, subscribing, ringing the bell, super helpful, great ways, thank you, for you to make sure that you get notified whenever any of our videos come out. We have one more of these JaARs later in the week on Thursday coming out, where we will talk about the Elish Norn story that came out. That, again, both this one and that one were bits of a surprise. This one, it makes sense for it to have been a surprise because the announcement of Pride Across the Multiverse was a surprise. That's how Secret Layer drops work, whether we like it or not. But this story was a surprise drop because of that. The Elish Norn one, a different story. We'll talk about that next time, so stay tuned for that. Like I said, if you have that notification bell rung, you will get that notification as soon as the video goes up, and we would love to hear your thoughts for this video, for that video, for any video at all. Definitely stay tuned to the channel for more. We'll have product openings coming up after that, because I have not gotten a chance to open my Streets of New Capenna other extra pre-release kits yet. I did 5 already, but I'm doing 1 more of each, so stay tuned for that. And then we've got some bundle battles to take care of if we have enough time.
So behind on those.
Yes, if we have enough. Yeah, I think D&D is the next one we have to do.
Gosh.
So yeah, if we have time before the next set comes out. Turns out there's a lot of stuff going on here on this channel and in the Magic community in general. So definitely stay tuned for more stuff. Again, we would love to see you on stream Mondays and Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern. But for now, from us here at the Geek for All family of channels, I have been Joe.
And I'm Mimi.
And as we always say, in whichever video of ours you watch next, we will see you all next time. Thanks, everybody.